Hello and welcome to Real Watchers Movie Club. My name is Garrett.
And I'm Kevin.
And we are your hosts. Movie Club is the show where we pick a movie every week and discuss it, just like a book club. On today's show, we're covering the classic romance drama, Casablanca. Our thoughts and more coming up on Movie Club. Released in 1942, Casablanca was directed by Michael Curtiz and stars Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, and Paul Henry. A cynical expatriate American cafe owner struggles to decide whether or not to help his former lover and her fugitive husband escape the Nazis in French Morocco. It is currently ranked 47 on IMDb's Top 250 and has a 4.3 on Letterboxd and is ranked number 169 on its Top 250. The film was nominated for 5 Academy Awards for Best Score, Best Film Editing, Best Cinematography, Best Supporting Actor for Claude Rains, and Best Actor for Humphrey Bogart. It won 3 Academy Awards for Best Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture. Before we dive into our thoughts, though, we do want to issue a spoiler warning for the film. Obviously, we're going to be talking about everything that happens in the movie and things that may spoil the experience for you if you've never seen it. So go and watch it, and then come back here. You're not going to offend us. It's all right. We just don't want you to get spoiled on anything. But stay tuned to the end of the show to find out what we're covering next week, because it's going to be quite different from what we've been covering lately. Okay, Kevin, so we are finally here with Casablanca. Casablanca was your pick. So what made you choose Casablanca?
So originally, before we started this journey of Movie Club, I tried to watch this and I could not get into it. So I thought I should put it on here just to see if after watching all of these great movies that we have covered, do I still have the same perspective than I did before Movie Club? And no, I can tell you that no, I do not have the same perspective. So that's why I wanted to pick it. I wanted to see if I was correct back then and not enjoying it. And I'm glad that I was wrong.
A changed man.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just kidding. Well, I'm glad you picked it. I mean, honestly, truth be told, we've been covering like good movie after good movie. Like honestly, like there hasn't been a bad movie that we have covered on Movie Club, but we've covered a lot of very high scoring movies lately for one of or both of us, right? Casablanca it's one of those movies. I very, very much love this movie. And it is widely considered to be one of the best films ever made. So it's very exciting to get to talk about it here on Movie Club. But let's go ahead and dive into it. Obviously, since this is your first time seeing the entire thing all the way through, what stood out to you? What did you like? And what kind of changed? Like, that's what changed your mind after the first time.
What changed my mind was the acting is very good. The dialogue is fantastic in this movie. And just the situation that they are in. Maybe when I was first watching this, I didn't know what was going on because I wasn't really paying attention. But this situation that they're in is intense, but it's also in a romantic way to other people, the two main characters, about lovers that meet, and then he has to decide, does he want to help her or not, because they are trying to flee. Is it France they're fleeing, correct?
No, Europe, essentially. Yeah, the Europe parts that are in the war. I believe it's France.
But so then that on second watch got me really into the movie, because I like war movies, not necessarily about war sometimes. This is technically, if you want to consider a war, just not with all of the guns and violence, but getting people to safety in a safe way.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it is a war film, right? It is taking place during World War II. It is dealing with characters who are suffering from the ramifications of war. And obviously this takes place in French Morocco, which obviously during this time, which is like 1942, 1941, France came under occupation of the Germans. And so the Germans were moving into Casablanca as well, trying to catch people, partisans and things like that, fleeing France to go other places. So I do consider it a war movie, but just not like a I would say it's not like a combat focused
Yeah.
war movie. It's not like Saving Private Ryan or something like that.
Mm-mm.
But it does deal with something that is very important. I would say often doesn't get as much attention
Yep.
as like combat or the Holocaust or anything like that. And that is like the exodus of people from France. And I would say a little bit of like the partisan stuff, like resistance and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a cool thing to see, especially because this film came out like within a year of Pearl Harbor. So this was like right smack dab in the middle of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
So really interesting that a movie like this came out at that time.
But
Yep.
Another thing is, I'm glad how I don't want to say it takes sides, but like there's not one side that it leans to. It's pretty neutral throughout the whole movie. We know that the Nazis are bad, but they were bad when this movie came out. But it doesn't express that like, oh my gosh, they're here. Like it doesn't give you like those guys and like point to them. It's like you kind of have to pay attention to the movie to understand which ones are the bad guys and everything. And I like that aspect of it because it's just not pointing fingers at somebody and be like, they're bad. It's you have to watch the movie to understand why they're bad and everything.
Sure. And I would say also another part of that too is, well, the idea of neutrality is an important part of this movie. But also this was during the time where when this was being filmed, I don't believe we were at war with Japan yet.
Mm-mm.
But also, like, we didn't go to war with Germany till after we declared war on Japan. So, from the American point of view, they were invaders, and like there was a war going on in Europe, and it wasn't like we didn't, they weren't really the enemy yet. And so I think you do get a little bit more of a neutral stance on both sides in this, which is obviously a part of its time. But like I said already, neutrality plays a huge aspect here because Rick is very neutral. And he's obviously doing that as a survival technique. But also, as the film goes on, you find out that neutrality is not easy to do. You do have to kind of get involved. And even, when he starts getting involved with Claude Rains' character, whose name is escaping me right now, Captain Renault, like a lot of that neutrality is lost. And especially with the ending, and kind of undoing kind of everything. But, it's such an interesting way to do a war movie and an interesting personality and character to center it on.
Exactly.
One who doesn't really care and is just running his own business, and then just happenstance happens to run into the one thing that he doesn't want to run into.
Yeah. Exactly. And so, I like their dynamic, the main character and the is he a detective or police?
He is a police captain.
Captain. Their dynamic is pretty. You see it in the beginning as well when he has a secret gambling thing in the back. And some of these moments, I don't know if they were meant to be funny, but when
yes, they were.
Oh, okay, you know exactly which one I'm talking about. Where comes up the gambling and he goes, "Captain, here are your winnings," and it's like.
Well, okay. The captain comes out and he's like, "I'm appalled to find out that you have illegal gambling going on here." And then the host guy walks in. He's like, "Here's your winnings, captain." He's like, "Thank you very much. Now everyone get out of here."
I thought that was so funny. Like they could have just swiped it away, like he didn't know about it, but he takes it and makes it like a little comedy bit, and it's great because you're like, "Yeah, why wouldn't you take the money? You gambled it." But now I have to do my job.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like it's. This is going to be a very wild comparison, right? But it's kind of similar to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where the point of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies are not to be funny. They just have funny parts to them.
Yeah.
It's very similar in that regard, right? Like this is a romance drama at its core. It is about, Rick and, oh my gosh, Ilsa. I was going to say Ingrid, but that's the actual actress's name. But like, it is about them. And, obviously we get the, what happened before in Paris, with the always famous line, "We'll always have Paris."
Yep.
So if you ever hear "We'll always have Paris," that's what it's from. And I'm sure you've heard the line before. "Here's looking at you, kid." It's from this movie.
Yeah.
So like there is a lot of humor in it, because like it's also a mark of its time, right? Like not every movie that came out back then was deadly serious. It had some sort of like feel good bent to it, especially after World War II and after the Japanese attacked and everything, right? Like you had a strong sense of patriotism, but like also optimism and like, you know, a little bit of propaganda. Not maybe not a little bit, but you know, like you got those things, and they had a bent of positivity to them and that was kind of, you know, I don't believe this is the era of the Hays Code. I want to go ahead and double check here real quick. The Hays Code. Yeah, so this was during the Hays Code, which is basically censorship of the kind of film industry. Kind of prohibited, like the code prohibited like profanity, suggestive nudity, graphic or realistic violence, sexual stuff. Like it was basically self-censorship imposed by decency leagues and things like that.
Oh, okay.
And so, like for example, if you go back and watch the original Ocean's 11 with the Rat Pack,
Okay.
per the Hays Code, they couldn't get away with their crime. They had to lose, so they stored it in a casket in the morgue, and then it was sent into the furnace to be reduced to ashes like they would for a body. And so they didn't get away with it, unlike the new one where they can, because the Hays Code said you can't get away with crimes, you have to show them being punished. You can't show criminals as good guys. So a part of that Hays Code era is also the kind of more decency focused stuff, the positive focus stuff, right? And this movie has definitely thrilling aspects to it.
Yeah.
And some dark elements, because it has to do with World War II, obviously. But at its very core, it is a love story. It is, you know, and in many ways, a love story that goes beyond the romance love. Like, you know, I love her so much that I will let her go with her, her, you know, her fiance or her husband to have a better life, because that's how much I love her. Very selfless love.
Yeah.
Which we're spent the entire movie being told that Rick doesn't do that, but then does, which is a great kind of evolution of the character. But yeah, it's just it's such a unique time capsule of a movie. Kind of like right at the very start of World War II and America's involvement, and kind of before the sentiments that we grew about the war and things happening in it. So very, very interesting there. But I do want to kind of circle back, though, because you had mentioned the performances in this movie.
Yeah.
And they're fantastic.
Yeah,
like,
they are. I mean, like older movies had to, I don't want to say had to be fantastic, the actors and actresses, because they didn't have any like VFX or anything like voiceovers. They probably could have done that, but that would
you could do voiceovers and stuff. It's just like you don't have computer generated effects or anything.
Yeah,
so everything's being done in camera.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it was so good because everybody's playing their part. And we just watched a video shortly. You were watching it and then put it on the screen, about how they didn't really know how this movie would end. And hearing that, and then me like kind of rewatching it in my head, it really feels that way, that they're both trying to go for this woman, but no one knows who's going to get it until the end of the movie. And they never show favoritism over one person. Well, I guess sometimes they do, but they do it equally for both. But it was very interesting. We were watching like the WB thing on it, and how the actors were getting mad because they didn't know who was going to get what's her name? I'm going to call her Ingrid, but it's not her name.
It's Ilsa.
And that's what makes it, I don't know, like more enjoyable for me now, because it's like, oh, they were actually playing on each other's feelings pretty much.
Yeah, and I think that it's all part of the grander narrative, right? It's just they didn't know how it was going to end until they had what felt right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see it, and it just, like that video said, it flows like butter. It is so smooth. And I'm sure that the performers came to realize that after the fact and seeing the finished product and going, oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that, you know, in the performance category, obviously, Humphrey Bogart, fantastic in this movie as Rick, an iconic performance. Also, Ingrid Bergman, gorgeous, really, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like a heart steel.
Like silently fantastic, right? She's not bombastically in her performance. She's very subdued, but it's powerful and it's there. Paul Henreid as Victor Laszlo, who's her husband or fiance, I can't remember exactly. Fantastic as well. Claude Rains is just one of those actors that I love in pretty much everything he's in, even though he kind of plays the same character in every movie, but he's the one who plays the police captain.
Yeah.
Just absolutely, like,
he
was sly and quick.
What's weird is I remember the police captain being on screen more than Ingrid sometimes, which is really weird to me. I'm pretty sure she had like a bigger part in this, but I guess I remember his parts more because I guess what happens at the end about everything in the gambling thing was pretty funny. I smiled a little when that happened, but
it's really funny.
So good.
Because like it's really well written, but then really well delivered by Claude as well. And I'm sure there's people out there who've probably made, like, you know, fan theories about how the love story was actually Rick and Captain Renault the entire time.
That would be funny.
It would be really funny. But like, and then other through the supporting cast, Conrad Veidt playing the German major, Sidney Greenstreet kind of playing that kind of underworld kind of figure. Peter Lorre, Peter Lorre is fantastic in everything you put him in. And just everyone really does their, like, it feels like you're in Casablanca, even though it's definitely a movie set and you're not, you know, actually in Morocco, but it feels, it's just like, it's so tangible. Like, Rick's Cafe feels like a place you could actually go to.
Yeah.
And
I can
sure
see
someone out there has a recreation of it. If they do, you know, I'll go in a heartbeat. You know, and because one of the things that's actually kind of really cool, kind of a side tangent for a second, is if you last time I went to the Academy Award Museum, they had a small section on Casablanca, and they actually had the piano, Sam's piano from Rick's Cafe, and Sam's piano from the Paris apartment on display. And then they also had the doors to Rick's Cafe on display, which was, they're gorgeously made. They're still in really decent condition. Obviously, you know, 80 years is going to have some wear and tear on it, but they look fantastic. And you can tell that love and that passion was put into making these sets. Because like that video that you were talking about said, and why I think I love this movie too, is like, this is reminiscent of the old, like, Hollywood studio system.
Yeah.
Big productions, big stars, you know, things being made on the back lot, you know, like it has a Hollywood magic to it. And I use that word a lot when it comes to really well done films. It's like, it has a magic to it. This movie, like, it is spellbindingly good.
Well,
you're invested.
You get kind of like zapped into another world, even though it's just on a screen. But like, when you first enter into Rick's cafe, you're transported to there, and you're like, yeah, like you said, I can see somebody recreating this and be like, wait, I want it to be like this, and then go there and you're like, this looks exactly like the movie, and that's okay. It would be so cool to see like bigger productions like this too, because you can see probably a lot of people put their heart and blood, sweat, and tears into just the background. Even though it is a black and white movie, you know, sometimes they had to put some color in there, or just so the actors have something to look at or distract them with or something like that. But you don't see that. But they're putting it in there because they have to do it for the movie.
Yeah, it's beautifully designed,
Mhm.
and in that you get some incredible cinematography in this movie.
Mhm.
This movie is gorgeous.
Mhm.
Obviously it got a nomination. Unfortunately, it didn't win, but it was nominated. One of the better looking films of its time, at least that I can remember off the top of my head.
Mhm.
But also the music is really good here. That sweeping kind of Hollywood glory day score, but then also just like Sam's song, the like famous
Yep.
"As Time Goes By,"
Mhm.
which is one of my favorite movie songs ever,
Mm.
um, being used in this movie because it's just so beautifully done. Yeah, this entire movie just it comes together. All these aspects that shouldn't have worked didn't really work in the moment, but they came together to create a pure piece of movie magic, and I really adore this movie.
Yeah, it's a very good movie, and the ending I think is very fitting for this movie as well. I had no problems with the ending
Yeah.
because of um, how he says it and what he does. How he says to I'm gonna call her Ingrid, but I know
Ilsa.
what's her name, Ilsa, Ilsa, and then the plane, so cool. Just the plane taking off, and you know that he just I don't want to say gave away. She's not an item, but like gave up something that he really wanted for another.
Mhm.
But he knows he was free, but then goes about it with the captain. Like, okay, what are we gonna do now? And it kind of like goes into that aspect of it.
Yeah, and it's again a very beautiful ending,
Hmm.
and like among so many lines in this movie that are iconic, but I think this is the beginning of a wonderful friendship. It's a
Hmm.
great way to end the movie, walking off into the distance, especially when he shoots the major dead,
Yep.
and the captain's just like, "It was one of those suspects we're chasing. Like,
Yeah.
go chase him."
Hmm.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. It's great.
And that is going to bring us to the end of this video, but let's go ahead and go over our final thoughts and scores. Kevin, since this was your pick, why
Hmm.
don't you go ahead and go first? Your final thoughts and score.
Final thoughts is this is a really good movie, a part of cinema history. And if you want a good romantic love story that kind of has kind of like a war theme to it, definitely watch this one. A great 1940s early movie that looks beautiful, is beautiful, and is beautifully done. Um, I gave this a 92 out of 100. I might watch this again and give it another score because of how good this was. Maybe not in a couple of weeks, but maybe a couple of months to see if I still feel this way. But I probably will give it a higher score. So that's 4.5 stars out of 5.
There you go. And
Mhm.
keeping the trend going from last week, I think that Casablanca is a perfect film from beginning to end. It is superbly acted and directed. It oozes charm and wit so effectively that it is hard not to smile while you're watching this movie. It's also
Mhm.
romance done right and intellectually. It doesn't treat its audience like children, it treats you like an educated adult. Beautiful
Mhm.
cinematography shines through, giving iconic scene after iconic scene, incredible dialogue. Yeah, perfect movie. 100 out of 100 for me. So
Nice.
five
Is that
stars
your
out of five.
is that your third 100 out of 100 in a row?
Not in a row.
I thought so.
No, because I gave one. I gave 100 to Kira. I also gave 100 to Seven Samurai and 100 to Godfather. So it's been like every other.
Oh,
It's
okay.
my second 100 in a row.
Oh, okay.
But
Gotcha.
hey, I mean, we've been watching really good movies, so it's kind of hard
Yeah,
not to.
and that's okay.
So the question now falls to you. What do you think of Casablanca? We'd love to hear what you have to say down in the comment section down below. But remember to be respectful of one another, because one person may be a French captain and may sell you out. Next week we'll be covering the intense, is too light of a word to put it, thriller, Prisoners. So make sure to watch it before next week so you're not spoiled. Thank you so much for watching again, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to us here on YouTube, and follow us everywhere at Real Watchers. We have this show that goes live every Friday at 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, when I remember to actually edit it and post it. And then we have our live stream that goes live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we talk about movie news, reviews, and so much more. And then we have the odd video that goes live every Monday, so make sure you're subscribed so you get notifications when those go live. But again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, remember to keep those eyes on the screen.